I would say that the catalyst for us probably was a few years ago when we engaged with the architect that was developing a new Houston Police Department property and evidence warehouse. And so that was the beginning of the opportunity for us. And you know, that evolved into a very close relationship between us and the architect, which resulted in a smaller overall facility by a significant margin. And you know, that really was what helped the project go through with the city from a funding perspective. And in that application, it was driven largely by probably lost evidence, misplaced evidence, which became a bit of media fodder in Houston, and so that helped to sort of catapult the project into the public eye. And then we were successful in working closely with the architect in doing a complete design on the. So essentially, the entire facility was designed around, to a significant degree, at that time compact but ActivRAC systems, and as well as some space saver systems for specific applications within the facility. And that really married those two product lines very effectively in that particular facility because it was so large and required very large warehousing, in addition to relatively small systems for weapons storage and pharmaceuticals and so forth. So it was a great learning experience and execution experience for us as a business because it covered all the gamut. And so we really drew from that and actually duplicated that and triplicated that in other applications over the last couple of years. Well, you know, there are different tiers of public safety facilities. So from a police department perspective, you've got what we call Tier 1 facilities. And we were fortunate enough to kind of tangent off of the Houston project and had success in the last couple of years thereafter with Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth. So we sort of got all the big five in Texas. And each of those were different in their own way, but Houston in particular and Fort Worth and Dallas were all really large applications. We did ActivRAC 16 in virtually all those facilities, and that of course is a pallet rack based storage system because all of those Tier 1 type facilities have really large palletized loads of evidence. Then when you kind of go down to the smaller departments, population bases of 150,000, 200,000, and even smaller, we consider those to be sort of Tier 2, 3, and 4, and so on. And you know, there's an opportunity through all of those. So we've done projects after those big ones in what we call Tier 2 facilities, the Garland Police Department, Killeen Police Department. So these are sort of, you know, 100,000 population cities. And you know, they might be an ActivRAC 8 manual system in some of those cases, and not quite such a large installation, but they were also good projects. The opening projects was a multiple 7-figure project in Houston. Some of those other Tier 1 facilities were all multiple 6-figure projects, and then you get into some, projects that typically will be in the $50,000 to $100,000 range in what I would define as those Tier 3 facilities. And our margins were generally fairly healthy. You know, depending on the project and how much negotiation took place, it would be somewhere between 25% and 30% probably on average. Well, I think it's been very effective for us because it's enabled our overall sales force to collaborate on projects. So we've actually designated specific sales reps within our organization to be industrial based and others to be commercial based. But we've got a reciprocal program between the two teams such that when one team finds an application in the environment in which they're pursuing business that's more of in the case of a commercial rep finding an industrial application, he would then hand that off to the industrial rep, sometimes collaborate with the industrial rep, sometimes just hand it off and receive compensation for that. In either case, it's always a very good reciprocal plan. So it enables our sales force to keep their eyes open for all opportunities. And as I said earlier, we have in many cases, in certain, what I guess I would define as core traditional space saver markets, public safety in particular, but also education and a couple of others, married both space saver and ActivRAC type product solutions in the same facility. Yeah, there's no question. There's no question. Most recently, in particular, where we sort of were fortunate enough to become somewhat known for the Houston project, we would then be brought in on the warehouse side for other projects, even smaller Tier 2 and Tier 3, and then those led to discussions around evidence lockers and other types of police private duty lockers and other types of products that were that enable us to kind of give a broader solution to the project. Well, there's no question that the biggest is the floorless design of the system. So virtually in virtually all of these municipal-based types of projects, cost is an important component. They're publicly funded projects. So the nature of those is that they become very cost sensitive. In addition, often they're in slab environments and warehouses, and quite candidly, they're often not very attractive buildings. And so the idea of laminated end panels and raised floors just isn't always necessary. So the neat thing about the ActivRAC is that enables us to design a good quality, very effective solution, but that doesn't contain things that really aren't needed for the application, and get the price point down to where it's a better fit. And so, and we were challenged on a couple of projects in particular. The city of Dallas, they went out and repeated requests for bids for literally 8 or 10 weeks, trying to get anyone to bid on the project. But our end user and the architect that was involved in the project liked our rail system. The fact that it was very easy to install the rail system and resulted in a floorless system, and no one else could match that spec. So it worked out very effectively. If there is, we haven't encountered it yet. Because we're doing one right now, for instance, that is a county sheriff's facility being built. And that came by way, I should mention, of our attending as much as we can the IAPE seminars that are held in our overall PAR. Whenever one is held, Joe Lotta typically notifies myself or Ray, and then we make sure 1 or 2 of our reps get into that seminar just to kind of meet the players. We usually get an opportunity to have a brief introduction of what we do. And an example of that was a small county sheriff's department that was funded for a new facility. And in that application, working again, the architect was the first one to come to us after the member of that county sheriff's office who was at IAPE told the architect to come to us. And we ended up designing a nice small ActivRAC 8 with a rivet rack, very inexpensive but very effective. And that ActivRAC 8 led to 20 or 30 evidence lockers. So that became the biggest part of the project for us. So that's an example. So we haven't encountered one that's too small. Well, I think they should explore and understand that the floorless design has great applications in the marketplace. That said, though, it does require a better understanding of what that entails. It's no longer a grouted level rail. So being able to effectively evaluate what the slab circumstances are in a given area that you want to sell the product is an important component. I think taking the time to have your installation folks truly certified on the installation of an ActivRAC type system is important. And then just coming to that realization that's a little difficult for some really tried and true space saver reps. We as a company for 30-some years now just prided ourselves in having the best and the highest quality and the prettiest systems. And so it's a little bit of a transition that you need to make to realize that this is still a very high quality solution, but better suited to those types of applications that truly don't require raised floors and potentially wood grain end panels and so forth. So I think that's the important thing, just kind of making that mental transition that there's a great market out there for the product. Once we shift our sights a little bit to what the requirements are for those types of applications.
Awesome.